Hello, you're listening to Hugo Talks. So yesterday we got Chris Whitty saying that next winter they are thinking of already planning on bringing in new lockdown restrictions.
And will then get over time to a point where people say this level of risk is one that society is prepared to tolerate and lift, right down to almost no restrictions at all. We might have to bring a few in the next winter, for example. That is possible because winter will benefit the virus.
That's 10 months away. Next thing we know, they will be talking in years. It will be 2023, 2024. It all started with flattening the curve 9 months ago, and now here we are, 2021, January. More restrictive lockdowns all around the world, and now we have these brief mentions about bringing in lockdowns next winter, at the end of this year, which must be irrespective of whatever the figures are going to be then. This is psychological priming. This is done a lot through brief mentions in announcements and leaks to newspapers. It's to get the public used to the idea. It's a way of acclimatizing them to a certain narrative. You're leaking future episodes of the story to them bit by bit so that when it's announced properly, they kind of knew it was coming, but they can't pinpoint where it came from. And it's not such a shock to the system as a shock to the system to the public might provoke a response of anger collectively, which is not what these people in power want. They want you to accept all of these new laws, restrictions, lockdowns. They want you to comply. They want the public to comply with them without too many of them turning into protesters. And this slow release of what they are planning on doing is their way of training you to accept it, priming you for future announcements. So this very brief comment says a lot. It states that no matter what happens in the future, in regards to figures and data, they are already planning on initiating lockdowns, Dark Winter to the sequel, and we haven't even got through Dark Winter 1 yet. The announcement of the third lockdown has also seen many mentions of tighter restrictions and more draconian laws being enforced and brought in. Here we have this story from yesterday. Police chief calls for power of entry into homes of suspected lockdown breakers. West Midlands Police Commissioner calls for useful tool to enforce new national lockdown measures. The government should toughen the lockdown by giving officers the right to force entry into homes of suspected lawbreakers, a policing leader has said. David Jamieson, the Police and Crime Commissioner for the West Midlands Police, England's second biggest force, said for the small minority of people who refuse entry to police officers and obstruct their work, the power of entry would seem to be a useful tool. I have raised this issue with the policing minister previously, and clarity on the power of entry would help police officers enforce the new COVID regulations more easily. So it seems that the police want to now have the right to kick down your door and invade your private space just on a hunch, on a suspicion. I can foresee a future where masks are made mandatory in your house and the police could be crashing through your door because they think you might be walking around your own home without a mask on. It sounds crazy, but that's the world we are living in now, a world where the most crazy and darkest thoughts are now possible and don't seem so far-fetched a prediction at all. And along with the third lockdown announcement, the Met Police issued a statement. It says here, senior Scotland Yard officials have announced the adoption of new hardline lockdown policy to stop and question people if they are out in the street, and to issue on-the-spot fines if they cannot provide a reasonable excuse for being out of their houses. The London Telegraph reports that London's Met Police issued a statement noting that with fewer reasonable excuses for people to be away from their home in the regulations, Londoners can expect officers to be more inquisitive as to why they see them out and about. Where officers identify people without a lawful reason to be away from home, they can expect officers to move more quickly to enforcement, the statement further noted. Scotland Yard says that the fines will be more readily handed out, even to those who are simply not wearing a mask. After 10 months of this pandemic, the number of people who are genuinely not aware of the restrictions and the reasons they are in place is vanishingly small. So in the UK now, the police it seems, can fine you for not wearing a mask in public places. This rule came in without much fanfare. So now, if you don't wear a mask outside in a public place, you can be fined by the police. I mean, what's a public place? I mean, everywhere outside is a public place, isn't it? So it seems like that crazy prediction of a future where the police can break into your house to check if you're wearing your mask doesn't seem that crazy after all. We're only a few steps away from something as mad as that. But what stuns me the most is the general public. If one is to look on the social media, the majority of the public seem to agree with this slow erasing of their freedoms. They seem to be willing to go along with all of this. And I don't know if it's cowardice or stupidity. I don't know, but surely can you not see how this is increasing now? How we are being told about lockdowns next winter, being primed for the future, even though these individuals claim to have no idea how it's going to pan out, and yet they're telling you they're going to be bringing or possibly bringing restrictions in next winter, 10 months away. There are people still out there who think the Great Reset is a conspiracy, even though there is a website dedicated to it at the World Economic Forum. This powerful NGO has spent money making videos to promote the concept of the Great Reset, and yet people still think it's a conspiracy theory, that it isn't real. We have health passports being introduced, which are partly funded by the World Economic Forum. Politicians like Michael Gove declaring on air that they have no intention of introducing the health passport, when we all know they do, blatantly lying, and yet the public continue to believe what these people, these government ministers say. And the great swathes of the public still think that the Great Reset is a conspiracy fantasy because the BBC told them so. Can these people not think for themselves? How can they be made aware? How can their eyes be opened? We all need to speak up and share information, but make sure that information is factual, that it can be verified and proven, that highlights what's going on, because general awareness from the public and the lack of inquisitiveness is what's lacking. But I do believe that the human spirit will overcome, will eventually realize what is going on. But maybe it needs a bit of a nudge, you know? In case you didn't know, I have now set up a website, hugotalks.com, which you can subscribe to. I did this because YouTube are censoring and banning loads of YouTube channels, and I'm thinking at some point they are going to be coming for me, even though I'm very careful what I say, but what I say doesn't fit into the mainstream media agenda. They've already deleted one video, so who knows how long I've got left. So there is a link to the website below in the description and in the comments pinned to the top. I hope to see you there. As always, thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe.